Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the second episode of the story in which Naruto has the Kyuubi sealed inside him, but with an unusual twist. The sealing has changed, and a new bloodline has emerged. Naruto intends to use these abilities to become Hokage and change Konoha's clans. Will he survive long enough to carry out the changes? This story is from Tongues. Please support him, her. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. Hinata woke up late the next morning, at 8 a.m. She had had an excellent night's sleep, and woke up remembering the soft caress of Naruto's lips. The warm feeling of his tongue brushing against hers. The way he gently stroked her. And then she noticed something sticky between her legs. Blushing crimson, she lifted the covers only to see her essence leaking out through her panties. Never before had she had such a wet dream before. It was as if a dam broke and the waters simply rushed out. Quickly leaving the room, she briefly explained that she needed a new pair of sheets to a passing housemaid, and asked her not to tell anyone. Showing a knowing grin, having seen from the shadows what occurred last night, the housemaid nodded, and went about her assignment. Hinata, on the other hand, simply went to the bathroom, showered, returned to her room, dressed in her ninja clothes, and set out for training field 14. Strangely, it seemed to her as if much more time had passed since the team meeting, even if it had only been yesterday. Arriving at the field at 8:55, she noticed her teammates Kiba and Shino were already there. Now they were just waiting for Aliera. There was silence, none of them talked, all expecting their sensei to show up soon. At 9 a.m. sharp, Aliera shined into the middle of the rather barren training field. It was just one gigantic clearing, with a few sparse groves of trees scattered around. It was a circular clearing, a little rough around the edges, and the plant life grew smaller until next to nothing at the center. It was one of the smaller training fields, only a few hundred yards in diameter, and left basically no places to hide. Aliera simply stood in the middle of the clearing, leaning on her sword which was now glowing bright green and seemed to be pulsating chakra. Glad you all showed up. I figured I would get straight to the point. Here I have 2 bells and a timer. When this timer reaches noon, it will go off. That is how long you have to get these bells from me. The one of you that doesn't get the bell will be tied to a tree, while being forced to watch his or her teammates eat. Also, they'll be sent back to the academy. She finished with a playful tone, waggling her finger at them. What? Kiba yelled, far too loudly. If Shino could be bothered to speak, he'd pull a Shikamaru and call Kiba troublesome, but seeing as they were a team, he was not willing to do so. It would be troublesome in itself. One of you is guaranteed to fail. Now, go. She shouted, dropping the timer on the ground. She vanished. Kiba was the first to move. Trying to catch her scent, he found it led down the path that led back into Konoha. With his dog bouncing on his head, the young Inuzuka performed a few hand seals. Ninpo, Shikakyu no Jutsu, 4 legs technique, and with a burst of speed, he disappeared as well. At this, Hinata turned to try to talk to Shino, but found he had disappeared as well. Shrugging, Hinata followed Kiba's trail, watching his progress with her Byakugan activated. Unbeknownst to them, they were being watched. With Aliera, wow, they were easier to lose than I thought. She was currently speeding through the trees, now traveling just beyond the tree line, parallel to Konoha. With a team made for tracking, I'll have to at least make it a bit difficult. And with this thought, the 20-year-old, brown-haired, beautiful Kunoichi broke from the tree line, hinged into a civilian, and began to mix with the smells of the street. It had only been 10 minutes, 2 hours, 50 minutes left until her team passed or failed. With Kiba, having found the spot where Aliera must have been just a few moments ago, he looked around, confused. The smells of Konoha made it hard to find Aliera specifically. Noticing a minute ago, he decided to stop moving and wait for her. After all, he may be an arrogant Inuzuka, but he could recognize when his skills were not sufficient. With Hinata, seeing Kiba stop moving up ahead, she decided to meet up with him. Maybe he had decided to wait for her, and it would be rude to ignore him, even if he was supposed to be competition in this test. He came into view of her normal eyes, and she soon stopped next to him. "Kiba-san, I thought you were following her." Narrowing his eyes slightly at the fact that he had lost her trail, he scowled, then repressed it, smiled at Hinata, and spoke to her. "I was. She got away, and I can't seem to pick out her scent, there are too many around." "Ah, Kiba-san. If you would help me, we could both get a bell. I mean, we're teammates, aren't we?" Looking at her with surprise, considering he was supposed to be her opponent in this endeavor, he reluctantly agreed. As long as he got his bell, there wouldn't be any problems. Hinata, sighing with relief at his agreement, reactivated her Byakugan and leapt off into the town to look for their sword-wielding sensei. With Aliera, sheesh, it had been an hour and still no one close. What kind of tracker team is that? I didn't even mask my smell. And that Hyuga kid has passed over me twice now, with the supposed tracker. Judging from her experience, she didn't believe she was being unreasonable. Had Hinata checked every area thoroughly with her Byakugan, she would have found her by now. Still, that Shino kid had her worried. She had found no trace of him until right then. With Shino, I'm glad I placed that Kikai bug on her as soon as she arrived. I figured it would be some kind of test having to do with tracking. From the looks of it, that's what this team is built to do. They'd have to give us a sensei who's good at tracking. I wonder why we got her. Abandoning such thinking, as at that moment it was illogical to think about something currently irrelevant, Shino stayed a mile away from Aliera's location. He figured the best way to get the bells would be to send bugs to distract her, then get a bell for himself with the bugs, but without knowing her. Abilities, would it be a waste of time? Dwelling on this lack of information, he decided to keep observing until his teammates engaged her, so that he could know something of her abilities. With Kiba and Hinata, Kiba-san, I've found her. She's a few hundred feet to our left, standing by that fruit stand. She's eating an apple, can you see her? The woman in the red dress? Yeah. Staring at her, he began to drool, imagining what kind of fun things he could do with a woman like that. Even Akamaru's sweat dropped, as Hinata privately wondered how the 12-year-old had become so perverted. However, he was soon hit in the back of the head, and turning around he found Aliera, with her sword now just under his head, the blade pressed to his throat. "Freeze," she said in an icy tone. "I told you, I'm not your eye candy. Let's see if you can find me again." And with that, she quickly disappeared. With Shino, serves him right for being so unobservant. Shino muttered under his breath. A bug landed on his hand and crawled around. It was a kind of bug he had never seen before, being slightly larger than an average dragonfly, bright red, and with brown stripes down its body. He was promptly engulfed in a cloud of smoke, as Aliera appeared before him, apparently having hinged into the bug, since it was no longer there. "Seems you need to be more observant as well," she stated, then placed the Kikai bug he'd had on her back onto his hand, and shunshined off, back to the training ground. With Aliera, well, their tracking skills are good, but how are they at fighting? Smirking, the young Jounin sheathed her sword, and got into a basic fighter stance, as the first of the three arrived, Shino. "Well, I am impressed by your intellect, but it will take more than that to get these bells from me." Not showing any emotion, the Aburame merely nodded, and charged, throwing kunai at the Jounin. Dodging, she announced to him, "First lesson, taijutsu," then, with speed the genin could barely follow, Aliera rushed past him, tripping him with her left foot. Then, spinning on her heel, she used the momentum to hurl a punch into the genin's back, sending him flying off to where she had been, just moments earlier. With surprising agility, Shino righted himself and landed on his feet. Grimacing at the pain, he took up his stance again. Moving through hand seals at an average speed, a clone appeared next to him. Both he and the clone rushed the jounin, taking either side of her. When they got close, Aliera ducked backwards into a bridge, spun on her hands, and kicked both the original and the clone in the face, only for both to explode into clouds of bugs. Quickly pulsing chakra from her sword, the jounin sent a wave of green light off to her right, which the bugs promptly followed, before returning to their master, who charged. Breaking out of her spin, Aliera jumped straight at the genin, only to disappear and reappear behind him, chopping him in the back of the next and knocking him out cold for at least an hour. There was about half an hour left on the timer. Next, both the Inuzuka and Hyuga arrived, only to see Shino dying from mortal wounds, knives driven into his body and a sword through his back. Standing atop the broken young genin was Aliera, chuckling at the sight of their odd faces. However, Hinata quickly noticed something was wrong, and activating her Byakugan, she saw through the genjutsu. Sending a chakra pulse into Kiba, he broke it as well. So the two of them are working as a team. Well, it's a start. Well? Are you just gonna stand there gawking like idiots, or are you gonna get these bells from me? Stupidly taking the bait, Kiba charged, only to see Aliera making seals. Second lesson, Genjutsu. Kiba was enveloped in a world of cats. Black cats, white cats, orange, brown, blue, purple, cats of all colors, sizes, shapes, hair, or lack thereof, and all of them were playing. Jumping to and fro, playing with balls of twine, kittens and old cats napping, and more. And more. And more. And more. Hinata saw Kiba freeze in place, then let loose a blood-curdling scream, before falling unconscious. What Aliera did to Kiba, she would never know, but she knew that whatever it was, it would probably give him nightmares for a while. Third lesson, Ninjutsu. And with that announcement, Aliera began to make seals. Finishing on the 26th seal, she announced, Futon, pulverizing shield technique. Forming around Aliera's arms were two large shields made of wind chakra, that looked like a defensive technique, but could also serve as a good offensive technique. Then, she charged, though at a much slower pace than she had used against Shino. Taking her Juken stance, Hinata activated her Byakugan, and didn't see, to her surprise, any of Aliera's tenketsu. Apparently the shield jutsu she was using had enough chakra in it to block the tenketsu from sight. Aliera noticed that Hinata had not used a jutsu, and decided to take the offensive. Jumping high into the air, she began to spin at massive speeds, the shields around her turning her into a human buzzsaw. Dodging swiftly out of the way, Hinata watched Aliera touch the ground, only to create a large crater, and bounce up into the air again. Hinata only had the basic academy jutsus, and a few small ones that Naruto had taught her. However, thinking about Naruto, Hinata got an idea. An inventive idea. Creating several seals, the young Hyuga cried out, Katan, fireball jutsu, and the small flame rushed at Aliera. Not being able to dodge easily while in the air, Aliera was engulfed by flame which intensified due to the wind chakra in the air around her. Lightly scorched, she broke the technique and lunged forward, hitting the Hyuga girl in the stomach, knocking her unconscious, but not quite setting her on fire. 2 hours later, as if on cue, all 3 members of Team 8 woke up, one of them struggling against the ropes that bound him to a log. That wasn't their last time he looked at the training field. Hinata and Shino just sat up, opening their eyes to see Aliera standing before them, holding 2 boxed lunches. I'll give you one more shot at this. You two may eat, and afterwards the 3 of you may come at me again and try to get the bells. You are not allowed to, under any circumstance, feed Kiba. He didn't even get close to a bell. Adding a little killing intent to reinforce her words, she walked away. Once out of range, the 2 began to eat, but then a loud rumbling noise echoed throughout the clearing. Looking at Kiba, Hinata was about to offer him her food, but before she could, Shino reached up and offered him some. Guys, thanks really, but you'll get caught, we can't risk it. Kiba. It is illogical to refuse. I don't sense her presence in the area, and besides, you're useless to us if you're hungry. Picking up a piece of sushi with his chopsticks, Shino placed the food into Kiba's mouth. He quickly chewed and swallowed, only to nearly throw it back up when he felt the killing intent coming from directly in front of them. I said you couldn't feed him. What kind of team are you disobeying orders? Aliera screamed at them, adding about 1/8 of her total killing intent, enough to make Kiba literally wet his pants. Shino responded calmly, if we are to be a team, we have to help each other out, despite consequences. Shaking with fury, Aliera turned to the other two. Do you agree with this sentiment, she asked, in an icy, stern tone of voice. Both nodded in agreement, Kiba continuing to wet his pants. Okay you pass. Her suddenly sunny disposition caused all of them to sweat drop. Then, scanning all three of them, she spoke in a sage-like voice. There is a monument here in Konoha, dedicated to those who gave their lives for their teams. I have friends, comrades on that monument, and not one of them died from a lack of teamwork. They sacrificed their lives for the sake of others, and for that they are the most highly respected of ninjas. Another Jounin once told me, on a mission those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their teammates are worse than scum. Remember that. Now go home, and Kiba, you can get yourself down, I'm not going anywhere near your stained pants. Looking over at the Inuzuka with surprise, Hinata broke out laughing, and Shino simply chuckled. Kiba, bright red from embarrassment, just yelled, what? She put me in a hell made of cats. Who wouldn't be afraid of a world of cats? Walking away, his team simply laughed. Fortunately for him, Akamaru was used to the smell, and chewed through the ropes, freeing him so that he could return to his house, jumping through the window so as to keep the fact that he wet his pants secret from his mother and sister, who would have never let him hear the end of it. Hell had come, in the form of cats and a psychotic genjutsu. It had been about 4 months since Team 8 had graduated and officially become genin. They had done mostly dranked missions and trained, with no cranks under their belt. All the other genin teams, except for Team 7, had done at least one cranked mission. Aliera had told them not long ago, when you feel ready for a cranked mission, tell me, and I'll let you try. You've trained hard, I think you've earned it. At this, the Inuzuka boy had jumped up and down, cheering. The dranked missions were so boring, and every time they had to get the daimyo's cat, he always thought back to that world of cats. His bladder control improved, but he still couldn't touch the cat without wetting his pants. However, now they could let that cat go about its business, it was time for a crank. Entering the Hokage tower, Team 8 saw Naruto heading upstairs to get a mission. Team 8 actually saw Naruto rarely now, he was always doing missions, going with either other rookie or experienced genin teams, or doing missions in two-man teams with other chunins, or just plain training. Not much has changed about him in the last few months. He was now about 5 feet 3 inches, pretty tall for a 12-year-old, and wore a black muscle shirt, with the green vest over it, and black ninja pants, along with black combat boots with metal on the bottom to aid the force of his kicks. Unlike many chunin and jounin, Naruto's vest was full of scrolls. Every slot had a storage scroll in it that contained everything from a month's worth of food, to weapons, to his scroll consisting entirely of modified exploding notes. Stopping, he looked over at them and smiled. Hey guys, you wouldn't happen to be here for a crank, would you? He'd ask them this every time he saw them, every few days. Though Naruto liked doing missions, he could not join them for dranked ones because the village needed him to do other, higher-leveled missions. Though he didn't expect them to actually be there for one. Actually, yes. Would you like to join us? This invite, though completely unnecessary as he would have found a way to go with them anyway, was nice to hear for once. The thought of Naruto-kun joining them on a mission out of the village sparked Hinata's interest especially. They could finally get away from the village people or her father spying on them without being suspicious. The last few months, Naruto had taken Hinata out on several dates, all ending in about the same way, a deep, long kiss. However, Hinata's father had found out. Though he didn't hate Naruto for being the container of the Kyuubi, he didn't like him for it. He could be tolerated, but Hayashi wanted to know what was going on, and one time caught them nearly kissing. Since then, there had always been a Hyuga main or branch member following them, giving them basically no privacy. Being alone with Naruto, out in the woods, away from prying eyes. Everyone was staring at Hinata, her deep shade of red, and the small trickle of blood coming out her nose. Putting a hand on her shoulder, and shaking, Aliera snapped Hinata out of her funk. Looking around, the young Hyuga heiress wiped her nose of the blood, and turning an even deeper shade of red that no one knew was possible, she whispered, "Gomen. Now that that's out of the way, let's go get the mission. Naruto, come with us as well." Aliera spoke in an authoritative voice, and everyone complied. Approaching the Hokage, Naruto and Team 8 put in a request for a cranked mission. What they were not expecting was for the Hokage to say, "Took you long enough." Startled, the members of Team 8 looked at Irika, whilst Naruto and Aliera smiled knowingly. Irika, seeing the stares, decided to speak up. "Your skill levels are at Hygenin. I'm willing to bet, with your teamwork, that you could probably beat the other rookie teams. All you lack is experience. That is why we will be sending you on a cranked mission. Your duty is to protect a certain individual. Send him in." An old man with a pipe, a straw hat, and plain brown and gray clothing, stepped into the Hokage's office. Looking at Team 8 and Naruto with indignation, he protested to the Hokage, "This is my protection? They're just a bunch of snot-nosed brats. Especially the brown-haired kid, he looks like he'd wet his pants from fear if a black cat crossed his path." This statement nearly sent Hinata into hysterics, before she realized where she was and held it in. Shino let low a low chuckle. Naruto looked confused as to why the statement was so funny, and Aliera was restraining Kiba, telling him the village won't get paid and he'll fail the mission if he kills their charge. The Hokage then spoke, quieting the room. "This is Tazuna, the bridge builder from the Wave Country. He is building a new bridge there, and needs protection. Your mission is to escort him to Wave and guard him until the bridge is completed. This will be a several-week mission, so pack accordingly." "You heard the Hokage. Tazuna-san, meet us at the East Gate in 2 hours, we will then set out for Wave. The rest of you, report there in 2 hours. Pack a month's worth of supplies. You may go." Aliera stated in her authoritative voice once again. 2 hours later, Team 8 and Naruto set out from Konoha with Tazuna. It would only take a few days to get to Wave Country by foot and by boat. After traveling for a few hours, they walked past an odd sight. A puddle was on the path, though it hadn't rained for days. All of them nodded to each other, and Aliera slipped to the back of the group. Predictably, as soon as they had passed the puddle, 2 ninjas with gauntlets and chains shot out of the puddle. Wrapping their chains around Aliera, they pulled, hoping to tear her to shreds. Performing a kawarimi, she escaped, but neither of the 2 attackers noticed, and charged the remaining genin and the chunin. Hinata, moving quickly with her juken, flipped to the side of one and hit him with 2 quick palm thrusts to his right arm, disabling it. Then, with a sweep kick, he fell, and Hinata hit him in the back of the neck, knocking him unconscious. Meanwhile, Shino and Kiba were dealing with the second nin, while Naruto guarded Tazuna. Kiba charged the chunin, going into beast form with his Shikakyu technique, and shouting, "Tsuga," whirling Fang technique, he slammed into the attacker. The force of the attack sent him sprawling back, right into Shino, who delivered a strong kick to his head, knocking him out as well. Clapping was heard around the path, as Aliera appeared from a tree. She shot Tazuna a look that said, "You have some explaining to do," and turned to her team. "Well done. Tie them to the tree, our ANBU will find them. Now then, Tazuna, would you care to explain why exactly you have ninjas after you? Cranks only include bandits and thugs. With ninjas after you, this should be at least a brank mission." Hold on. I had to do it. You see, our country is very poor. Gatu, the businessman, I'm sure you've heard of him, has basically taken control of Wave. He controls all the ports, and since that is our only means of transport, he essentially controls the economy. He's made our country very poor, but that is what I am trying to fix. The bridge I'm building will allow us to make contact with the outside world. This is also why Gatu is after me. I knew he could hire ninjas, but we couldn't afford a higher ranked mission. Please, don't abandon us. Thinking it over, Aliera turned to her team. This mission will likely be in a rank, considering those ninjas failed, Gatu will probably hire more. There will be ninjas on this mission whom only I can fight. If I tell you to Sadie back, you will do so. Now, knowing that, do you want to continue the mission? Her answer was several eager nods, excluding Naruto who had a look of concern, but nodded as well. Tazuna-san, we will complete the mission, on one condition. When your village gets the money to pay us, you will pay full price. Nodding happily, Tazuna got up once again, and they set off. A few hours of traveling later, Shino had just thrown a kunai into the bushes, stating he had seen something there. However, upon closer inspection, there was only one white rabbit. Naruto's intellect kicking in, he realized that at this time of year, that kind of rabbit would be brown, so as to camouflage itself. Not taking much more notice, they continued, but only moments later they found themselves walking through a thick cloud of mist. Aliera, sensing chakra in the mist, was on guard. Then, sensing something flying towards them, shouted for all to hear, "Duck!" Reacting quickly, Team 8 ducked down, and Naruto tackled Tazuna to the ground, just as a gigantic sword flew by, where their heads had been seconds before. The mist quickly cleared, and the sword was to be seen sticking out of a tree, with a man standing upon it. Standing about 6 feet tall, he had short spiky black hair, a kiri headband, and a mask of bandages covering the lower half of his face. He was wearing no shirt, but had camo wristbands on his forearms. He was also wearing the most ridiculous striped blue pants, and matching camo leg warmers. All in all, he looked pretty ridiculous, and Naruto would have laughed if not for the killing intent the man was releasing. Then Aliera's voice cut through the silence. "Momochi Zabuza, demon of the hidden mist. Ah, I see you recognize me. That is quite an honor coming from Pathfinder Aliera." "Wait, Pathfinder Aliera?" All the genin made double takes, looking at their sensei. She was known around the world as the greatest tracker of all time, and was also known for her blade, a sword which could supposedly steal people's souls with but a scratch. It was a weapon feared even by some of the 7 swordsmen, and would only allow her to use it, as it was bound to her soul as well. Unfortunately for them, Zabuza was not one of the ones who feared the sword. "I am sorry that I must cut this meeting short, but you see, I have to kill that man." Kirigakure no Jutsu, hidden mist technique, a mist, much thicker than the previous one, surrounded them all very, very quickly. Then, a burst of killing intent assaulted them from all sides. Heart, liver, lungs. By the time he'd finished speaking, the killing intent was so great you could practically hear Shino's bugs shaking in fear. Aliera and Naruto, however, were not affected nearly as badly. Both of them had killed before. Aliera had had worse killing intents directed at her. And now, he dies. In a flash of movement, Zabuza was in front of Tazuna. Inside the ring the genin had formed around the bridge builder for his protection. Swinging his sword down, he was intercepted by Aliera, who stuck her sword straight through it, only to have it burst into water. Mizu Bunshin, water clones, Aliera muttered. Releasing a pulse of green chakra from her sword, the mist cleared. Then, rushing at a surprised Zabuza, the two engaged in a fierce kenjutsu fight. Moving her sword up quickly, she attempted to slash across his chest. Zabuza sidestepped the strike, and spun around in a full circle, very quickly, forcing Aliera to move away. Charging at her, releasing the spin, Zabuza attempted to slash her legs out from under her, but she jumped. However, in doing this, she accidentally let her sword drop down, and it was batted away by the mighty head-cleaving sword. Leaping away, she whispered a chant to herself, making many, many hand seals. From the great sea of Amorphia, we plunge down into the depths of life, we seek out love, hate, our being, but in the end, we all come back to Amorphia. The plasma of life, we are nothing more than a river, flowing from the great sea. Her voice grew gradually, finally ending at a shout, Vera. Grant me safety. Kenjutsu, Amorphia Taiga. Forbidden technique, life source river, a wave of blue energy shot out from her hands, now forming an O shape, at a speed that broke the sound. Barrier. Not having time to dodge, Zabuza held up his sword in advance, but screamed from the impact of the energy. After a few moments, the energy stopped, and Aliera knelt down on the ground, completely drained of all her chakra. However, Zabuza was in much worse shape. His arms, leg, torso, all of him had been burnt except for what little his sword had covered. Speaking of his sword, Zabuza no longer had one. It had vaporized from the force of the attack, and he had been left with no weapons left. Picking up her sword, Aliera moved to kill him, but was stopped by two needles entering Zabuza's neck. A hunter Nin leapt down and picked up the body. Then spoke, "Thank you for dealing with him. I've been waiting a while to kill him. Wait, let me make sure he is dead." Checking the pulse, Aliera felt none, and nodded her head. "I will dispose of the body. Thank you again." She then disappeared in a poof of smoke before Aliera could notice something was wrong. Naruto, however, easily noticed the problem. Turning to Aliera, he was about to voice his concern, when she suddenly collapsed. Picking her up, Naruto turned to the rest of them. "Since she is apparently tired from chakra exhaustion, I will be in charge. Tazuna-san, we can stay at your house, correct?" Nodding his head in the affirmative, Tazuna looked at Aliera with worry evident on his face. He needed ninja to protect them, but he didn't want any of them to die because of him. Sighing, Naruto noticed the looks of concern from Team 8 and Tazuna, and decided to speak. "Don't worry, she will be fine. Now let's get to your home before anything else can happen." Elsewhere, a young woman in a hunter Nin mask looked over the burned man before her. Picking up some medical instruments, she went to work on him, both pleased and angry. Pleased that he hadn't been killed by the soul-stealing sword, angry that she was not able to do much as he had commanded her to stay out of the fight unless absolutely necessary. She promised herself, "I will kill whoever did this to him. I swear it on my life." It had been only a few hours since they had arrived at Tazuna's house. It was rather large, 2 stories tall, with several guest rooms furnished for the ninjas to use. After setting Aliera down in her room, which she was to share with Hinata, Naruto, and the rest of Team 8 went downstairs to eat and talk. Approaching the table, they looked over Tazuna's family once again. Tazuna's daughter, Tsunami, was a very kind and pretty young woman, looked to be in her 20s or 30s, who cooked amazing meals considering what she had to make do with. Inari, Tazuna's grandson, was a resentful child, snorting at the ninjas, but never explaining why. Inari went to his room as soon as the ninjas entered the room. Naruto, his stomach grumbling, was the first to break the silence. Ano. Can we get some food soon? Fighting kinda made me hungry." Looking at Naruto with displeasure, Kiba said. "What do you mean fighting made you hungry? You haven't done any fighting the past few days." The rest of Team 8 also shot Naruto accusing looks, as if he had been purposefully avoiding fights. However, Naruto was not one to take such looks lightly. If there had been a good time to do so, I would have. However, I wanted to see your teamwork, and the last fight was only something Oliera could handle. Thinking to himself, Naruto added mentally, actually, I probably could have taken him out permanently, but I felt no need to start another fight with that Hunter-nin with Oliera in such a state. The bickering continued for quite a while, until Tsunami set down curry in front of them. Digging in, all of them had smiles on their faces. It was, quite simply put, delicious. Thanks Tsuken. Naruto shouted to her, while she blushed slightly, then turned away and scolded him. Don't talk with your mouth full. Of course, the blush did not go unnoticed by one ninja, however she had tried to hide it. Kiba, ever the young lecher, spoke up in his "I'm an innocent little boy" voice, Tsunami-chan? Can I get seconds? Of course. To protect someone you must be strong, and for that you must eat. Now go on, take more. Tsunami leaned down in front of Kiba, holding out a bowl to allow him to take more curry. However, this also allowed Kiba to get an eyeful down her shirt, which was rather low-cut and hanging off of her. Seeing him leering, with the bit of drool coming out his mouth and the blush across his face, Tsunami realized what had happened. If you want seconds, then here you hentai. Tsunami screamed, pouring hot curry onto the boy's pants. Kiba was up in less than half a second, but before he could move, Hinata shouted, Suetun, cleansing water no jutsu. Water from their glasses moved up and over, landing on the curry, washing it clean off and possibly saving Kiba's manhood. Thanks Hinata-san. At the same time, Tsunami stormed out of the room, and Tazuna turned to Kiba with a surprisingly sympathetic smile. She doesn't take kindly to perverts. If I were you, I'd be careful how I acted around her from now on. After pausing for a moment, Tazuna added thoughtfully, she tried to do the same thing to me when she saw me reading Ika Ika Paradise. Now I can only read them when she does the shopping. Hinata and Shino, growing increasingly uncomfortable as the conversation continued, stopped eating. Shino, being more annoyed at the time, said quietly, not everyone likes girls, you know. At that, everyone stopped eating, and stared at the bug boy, who, realizing what he had said, released bugs from himself. In a threatening tone, several octaves deeper than normal, and carrying great authority, decreed, if what I just said ever leaves the room, you will all be devoured by my bugs, got that? All he saw were nods of agreement. They finished eating, and Naruto decided it would soon be time to wake Oliera up and tell all of them of the more important issues. Everyone went about their business, and 2 hours later they all met upstairs in Oliera's room. I feel like hell. What happened? You used a Morphia Taiga, life source river, and passed out from chakra exhaustion shortly afterwards. Oliera rubbed her eyes and sat up. Looking around, she recognized her team and Naruto. What happened to Zabuza? He's still alive. All of Team 8 looked at Naruto as if he was crazy. What do you mean he's alive? You saw what Oliera did to him, and that Hunter-nin went off to dispose of the body. Oliera even said he was dead. Kiba pointed out. Naruto frowned at Kiba's stupidity, once again. Hunter-nins are supposed to dispose of bodies on location, taking only the head for identification, and possibly the weapon, though it wasn't available in this case. Also, the Hunter-nin used Senbon needles. It is very hard to kill someone with Senbon, however putting someone in a near-death state is quite possible. Given the burns and his need to replace his weapon, Zabuza will probably be able to attack Tazuna again in about a week. Oliera, do you agree with my assessment? Oliera nodded, then said, that jutsu took a lot out of me. I won't be up until I can fix my chakra coils again and restore my chakra. Did you bring me my sword? Nodding in the affirmative, Naruto handed said item to her, but as he did so, Hinata got a confused look. Aliera, I thought only you could wield that sword. How was Naruto able to pick it up? Naruto, having not realized this oddity, also began to wonder how it was possible. Aliera, sensing the building confusion in the room, responded before anyone could procure meaningless guesses. Simple, it allows me and the one I choose to wield it next to touch it. At this, Naruto's eyes went wide. You mean? I'm going to be the next one to wield ki? Will you show me how? When? What else can it do? Can you start teaching me now? Naruto started bouncing up and down with excitement, a rare act for him since he had not done any such thing since his second year as GTN. Aliera sighed. Naruto, I'll start teaching you soon, but you don't get ki until you're Hokage. Looking down in defeat, Naruto returned to the matter at hand. So wait, Aliera, will you be up in time? No, not likely, but we can't return to Konoha in the condition I'm in, nor any of you travel back alone, you could be targeted by Gato. We're just going to have to stay here. Naruto, train them, and train yourself. In a week, you must be able to defeat Zabuza. All of them looked shocked, but quickly resigned to their fate. Naruto, seeing their downtrodden looks, decided to distract them. We can do this. Come on, all of you, we have to train. In the woods, 15 minutes later, speaking in an authoritative voice, Naruto addressed Team 8. Now, I know you are all strong, and our teamwork is good. I won't be able to train you in much, since I have to train myself, but I suggest you work on your family jutsus. And work your asses off. If you need a sparring partner, come find me. I will be with Tazuna-san at the bridge and can make some Kage Bunshin. Also, here. Naruto reached into one of his scroll holders, and pulling out a tiny scroll. Opening it, he unsealed a very large scroll. Opening that scroll, he looked it over, then turned to the team. Look at this. They complied, and saw the scroll was labeled, in order, with the kanji for Basic, Advanced, and Master. This scroll contained many chakra control techniques, elemental jutsus, and theories that should help you master them. To unlock the scrolls, push some chakra into it. Smaller scrolls will pop out, giving you categories to choose from. Unseal the items in those, and it will give you information. To reseal them, make these 3 seals, showing them the seals. And put chakra into the scroll, and put it into the appropriate slot. Now this is my personal library. Don't damage anything. I suggest you only use the basic techniques. You won't master anything else in such a short time. Moving out of lecture mode, Naruto continued. Now, in order to use your time efficiently, I want you all to find out your chakra affinity. Kiba, you already know yours, so you can get started. Shino, come here and push some chakra into this. Holding up a card, he handed it to the bug user. Channeling some chakra into the card, it suddenly crumbled. Naruto, quite surprised by this revelation, exclaimed, "A lightning type. Now that's unusual. I'm not sure how exactly this works. Shino, are you bugs an extension of your chakra, or will you be turned into a human bug zapper?" Curious and annoyed at Naruto's apparent interest in his clan, Shino elaborated. My chakra and my bugs can be either separate or joined. If they were always joined, what kind of ninja would I be? I would need bugs to do a henge. This being the loudest all of them had ever heard Shino speak, and the longest he'd ever talked for, the group was stunned. Naruto, feeling a bit nervous around the boy, told him he could go to work. However, not long afterwards, Naruto heard Kiba mutter, maybe coming out of the closet loosened him up a bit. Needless to say, that night Kiba would wake up with many, many bugs in his sleeping bag. Heineken, Simir. Shyly walking over, happy once again to be relatively alone with Naruto, she looked both ways until she was sure both Kiba and Shino were busy. Then, she calmly reached up and enveloped Naruto's lips in a long, hard kiss. Lapping against his bottom lip, asking for entrance, they opened their mouths. Pressing herself to him, Naruto wrapped his arms around her, pulling her tightly against himself. Closing their eyes, they continued. A few minutes later, they broke away from each other, only to hear the lack of training going on. Looking around, they saw Kiba with his jaw on the ground, and Shino with his nose in his jacket, scowling. This wasn't his idea of a show. Naruto was the first to break the silence. Again. What, you've never seen two people kiss before? Naruto asked incredulously. Kiba simply snorted, and looked back to his scroll. Naruto held out a card to Hinata, who channeled some chakra into it. The card became wet, which was really no surprise, since she had already learned a few water jutsus pretty easily. Okay, you all know your affinities. Now get to work. Poofing away before they could ask any more questions, Naruto left his personal library behind and accompanied Tazuna to the bridge. For days later, 1,000 Narutos could be seen in an open field early in the morning not far from a bridge, training on a very odd technique. However, suddenly, all but one disappeared. The single remaining clone picked up a leaf, which promptly disappeared from sight entirely, as if it had never been there. Not far away, at a bridge, there could be heard a boy, no older than 13, yelling something about goddamned frickin' headaches. Not far away from where the clones had been, a boy surrounded by bugs lit himself with some kind of burst of light. A boy with a dog could be seen cutting up the ground by pointing his hands at it, and a girl was nowhere to be found. Deep in the forest, Hinata woke up in the middle of a small clearing, only to look over and see a girl picking herbs. Lifting herself up, Hinata turned to the stranger, and addressed her in a weak voice. "Excuse me? What are you doing?" "Picking herbs to help a friend," she stated simply. She had long black hair, and wore a pink casual kimono, well, as casual as a kimono gets. Hinata though, no surprise there. "What were you doing out here? You look pretty beat up." Shyly, Hinata responded. "I was training, I need to get stronger." "Why?" Pondering the question briefly, Hinata said, "To protect the one I love." The black-haired girl looked at Hinata with surprise, then smiled. "That's good. If you protect those precious to you, you will grow strong. Never forget that." The girl then began to walk away, but was stopped by a voice. "Wait, what's your name?" "Haku." And then, the black-haired girl disappeared. Shrugging, Hinata turned back to her training. Jogging to a nearby stream, she began forming hand seals. 2 days later, nighttime, Aliera awoke to see the same ceiling she had the past few days. She still hadn't regained the energy needed to be able to fight. She could only pray she'd be fine by morning. At the same time, Naruto and Hinata entered the house. Everyone else was asleep, or so they thought. Having not had any free time to themselves, and due to Kiba and Shino wandering around in their training, they had not found any time to be together. Sneaking up the stairs, they both entered the boys' room, right next to the girls'. Entering quietly, Naruto and Hinata locked the door behind them. "Are you sure this is okay, Naruto? I mean, what if Kiba or Shino come back? What if Aliera wakes up? It will be fine. Plus, I want to spend some time alone with my Heineken." Over the past few months, the two had grown close. Every free day they got, they spent together. Naruto just couldn't stand being watched over by a Hyuga whenever he was with her, and for the first time in a while, they were completely alone. Pushing 2 futons next to each other, they laid down, and embraced each other. "Hinata, there is something I want to tell you. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I hope you understand." Hinata's full attention was now on Naruto. "I haven't had all that many precious people in my life. I should say, I overheard that girl talking to you, I've been keeping watch on all of you the past few days, and I want to say." He was cut off by Hinata's expression. She was now blushing crimson. "Did he hear me? Did he hear me say that I, Hinata," he whispered softly. "I love you." Then, leaning in, he kissed her. However, this kiss was different for the both of them. The others had been amazing, but compared to this was heaven on earth. They moved closer to each other, Hinata pressing herself against his body completely, wrapping one leg around his. They lay there, embracing, kissing for what seemed to them to be eternity. The softness of their lips pressing against each other, the warmth of the tongue, the connection, the spark, the lust, the attraction. The love between them. All rolled into one, heavenly experience. Hinata was in a state of absolute bliss, but she wanted more. She broke away, and lifted up Naruto's shirt. To his great surprise. Hinata-kun? What are you doing?" He moaned softly, as his shirt was fully removed, and she traced her fingers up and down his toned, tanned body. "I just wanted to be closer to you." She slowly began removing her coat, revealing the tight shirt underneath. Pressing still closer, she took his hand, and put it to her chest. "Hinata. It's okay. Just, for now. I want to be close to you, just once, in case we die tomorrow." Suddenly, Naruto became stern. "Hinata, I promise you, we will not die tomorrow. I will protect you with my life, and I promise I won't die either. It will be fine, we can handle it together." Though Naruto hadn't known it, Hinata had been nervous about what could happen tomorrow. Sure, Naruto was strong, but having checked up on Aliera, she knew he'd be facing Zabuza alone. "Do you promise?" "I promise," and like that, they fell asleep in each other's arms. Outside the room, I hear breathing inside the room, and Naruto and Hinata couldn't be anywhere else. Kiba told Shino. "Whatever. Kiba, just because they are in a locked room together doesn't mean they did it. Now let's just go sleep on a couch or something. We clearly aren't getting in there, and I don't trust you not to fondle Aliera once I fall asleep." Harsh dude. Harsh. It was the morning that Teammate and Naruto had planned to escort Tazuna to the bridge, the day the bridge would be completed, and thus, the day Zabuza would attack. Early that morning, Aliera was deemed incapacitated, due to a needle to the neck putting her in a near-death state. Flashback no jutsu, Aliera Nechan. Naruto called, knocking on the door. "Aliera?" There was still no response. "Nechan, we have to go soon, get up." Walking into the room, he took no more than 2 seconds to get by Aliera's side, and check her pulse. She was alive, but just barely. Her breathing was shallow and she was pale as a ghost. A small Sanbon needle, very much like the ones that killed Zabuza, stuck out from her neck. Pulling it out quickly, Naruto used some of his chakra to heal the wound and stabilize her. However, with what little medical knowledge he knew, that was the most he could manage. Walking out of the room, he placed a sign on the door that said, "Do not disturb," and moved off to his room to get ready. End flashback, Hinata, Shino, Kiba. "Aliera is not fit to fight yet, we must do this alone. I don't want any of you to engage Zabuza. He will likely have that hunter Nin with him. Do not be fooled, he or she is a fake. Your job will be to defeat the Nin and defend Tazuna, I'll deal with Zabuza." Nodding, they looked at Naruto shakily, wondering what he could ever hope to do against such a foe, but kept silent. This was not the time to question him. Setting off with Tazuna, they walked to the bridge. Arriving there half an hour later, they looked around. It was a massacre. All of Tazuna's workers had been utterly maimed by a sword that, from the wounds, appeared to have a serrated edge. Tazuna's expression fell as he looked at the slaughter of those who had worked for him. Many, many friends were dead here. "I swear on my life that I will finish the bridge," so that your sacrifice will not be in vain. We must look for survivors, let's go. Wait, where's Kiba? The group looked around, but the Inuzuka was nowhere to be found. Elsewhere, I can't believe I forgot my equipment pouch. Stupid Kiba. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Looking around, the young Inuzuka saw something which caught his eye. There were scratch marks, likely from a sword, marking the path. They were headed in the direction of Tazuna's house. Crap. Gotta hurry. With that, he quickened his pace, and soon arrived to see a sight he'd never wanted to see. Earlier, Inari looked to where his mother was being held. He had never felt so helpless in his entire life, but he thought back to what he had been told by that wet dog kid earlier. Flashback no jutsu, you stupid mutt. No matter how hard you try, you cannot beat Gata's men. The weak lose against the strong, just like my father. He was a great man, he tried to protect the village with his own hands, but he couldn't stand up to them. What make you think you can? I lost my father, a great man of wave, how could a foreign happy-go-lucky douche like you help? You'll just die. They were in his room, but Inari soon broke into tears, and started to leave. However, he felt a hand on his shoulder, stopping him. Turning around, he saw the boy's face was surprisingly sympathetic. I have never met my father. I'm the clan screw-up. I'm not like Naruto, or Aliera, and I'm willing to admit I'm not as strong, but I keep trying. A screw-up is only a screw-up if he decides to stay one. I am going to work hard, I am going to be the greatest Inuzuka ever, a clan head, even without my father. You know why, because running away from problems isn't my thing. I'm not gonna cry and run away from all this. If I protect those close to me, those precious to be with these two arms, I will be strong, and you, if you stop running away, you will be strong too. Like deja vu, Inari was struck by this boy's similarity to his father. They had said the same thing, with these two arms. With these two arms. Thank you. Kiba-san. I won't run away anymore. The boy's voice was cracking, and Kiba decided it was time to leave. Closing the door behind him, he listened, but was surprised when he didn't hear crying. Maybe he had gotten through to him. End flashback, let go of my MOM. Inari. Tsunami was frantically trying to get away, to shield her son, as she knew what would happen next. One of the two samurai that had invaded her home looked over to see the young boy. What's this? I suppose you think you're tough, huh? Tell you what, come at me. We'll see what's tougher, your skin or my sword. Wait. Tsunami yelled, attempting to get his attention. Leave him alone. You only need me. Looking amused, the samurai holding her whispered into her ear, yeah, but where would be the fun in that? I'll bite my tongue and choke on my own blood to death if dare touch him. Her harsh tone of voice was rewarded with a hard slap to the face, but after that they simply began dragging her away. Kazan. Inari, run. They won't hurt you, just save yourself. Standing there, helpless, Inari watched his mom get dragged away. Picking up a large bucket, the young boy prepared himself for what he had to do. This was the scene Kiba saw. Tsunami being dragged away, and Inari emerging from the house with a large steel bucket. Aw man. Gotta do something fast. They don't look like ninja, one solid attack should do it. Jumping down from his branch, he made sure they hadn't seen him, and said quietly, Jujin Bunshin no Jutsu. Beast clone technique, Akamaru and Kiba, now a pair of beastly-looking Kibas, both began making seals. Shikaku no Jutsu, 4 legs technique. Suddenly, the power of the two increased. By a lot. Making a few final seals, they both whispered/barked, Doton, rippling earth no Jutsu. The samurai felt the ground shaking beneath them, an odd occurrence since there had never been earthquakes in Wave Country. Hearing a loud growl from in front of them, they both looked ahead, and in the blink of an eye, two identical ninjas blurred in front of them and launched their kicks. Rubbing weakly at the spot where they had been hit, they looked at the Kyuubis, raising their swords. "You're gonna pay for that, you punk. We're Gatu's men, and no stupid 12-year-old is gonna beat us, even if you are a ninja. Now, prepare to die." Watching in horror, Inari thought Kiba was about to die, and was about to dive in the way when something odd happened. Mid-swing, both samurai were struck by a wave of dirt, plowing them off into the water which surrounded Tazuna's house. Looking behind Kiba, Inari saw a gigantic swath of destruction, 5 feet wide, about 6 inches deep in the middle, curving upwards to meet the ground. The swath stretched back 200 feet to a tree at the edge of the woods. All that dirt had just struck the two samurai, leaving them bound with their heads just above water, in 2 gigantic pillars of mud. Kiba merely thought smugly, "Won't master an advanced jutsu that quickly, my ass." Turning back to normal, Kiba rushed up the stairs, grabbed his equipment pouch, downed a soldier pill, and rushed outside. As he moved past, he said to Inari, "Good work. Now I gotta go help at the bridge, they'll need me to bail them out." Of course, Inari watched as the visage of his new hero vanished into the woods. With resolve, he thought to himself, "This is the village's last chance to beat Gatu. I gotta go get help. With his gang, I'll need the whole village." And the young boy set off, to begin rounding up the resistance. Back at the bridge, Zabuza. "Today, you will pay for what you did to Aliera." Smirking, Zabuza jabbed a thumb in the direction of the hunter Nin, and spoke, "That was my tool here. Helpful woman, isn't she?" Spitting in disgust, Naruto spoke. "Hinata, Shino, Tazuna, stay back. You too, guard Tazuna-san. I see my fight is only a mere chunin then. Well, after I kill you, I'll kill the old man. Now, prepare to meet my sword." Charging forward, Zabuza revealed his new sword. It had a serrated blade that looked like it was made of teeth, and had a blue blade. The other side of the blade was sharpened, the sword looked like it was more for cutting than stabbing. The hilt was silver, the handle red. It was about the same side as his head-chopping cleaver, engraved on the side was the word Sirioli. Forming seals, Naruto shouted, "Katan, flame staff," and summoned a staff very much like Sarutobi's. It being the only weapon he was proficient in, other than kunai and shuriken, the kenjutsu battle began. On the other side of the bridge, the tension was building. "I am Haku. I figured I would tell you the name of your killer so you may die with peace of mind. Now, let's begin." Pulling out several senbon needles, she threw them at Hinata, Shino, and Tazuna. Using her Byakugan, Hinata deflected all the ones aimed at her and Tazuna, and Shino used bugs to block the ones aimed at him. "Hinata, guard Tazuna, I will deal with her." "Hi. Tazuna, get behind me." Complying, he moved so that she could guard him easily, and they began watching the fight. With Shino and Haku, protecting the girl. Well, such chivalry will lead to your death. You will die. Taking out several senbon needles, she hurled them, but they were once again blocked by the bug swarm. Deciding to use a different tactic, Haku performed several hand seals and shouted, "Hyuten, 1,000 needles no jutsu." At least 100 needles made of ice surrounded Shino, firing from all sides. However, when they struck, he burst into a cloud of bugs. A clone? Then, where'd he go? Looking around, Haku caught sight of a fist heading towards her. Dodging out of the way, she threw several needles at him, though they were again deflected by bugs. Forming seals, the bug boy whispered to himself, "Raiton, zap bug no jutsu." All at once, Shino's bugs were enveloped in a blue light. Landing on Haku, she immediately felt her chakra being sucked away. However, it did not go very far. Being turned into lightning, it was being fed back into her, the lightning zapping her chakra pathways. Had it continued for much longer, she would have been paralyzed, possibly for life. Jumping away from the swarm, Haku formed more seals. For Zabuza, she whispered. Hyuden, demonic ice mirrors technique. Shino was quickly trapped within about a dozen mirrors, all around him. Facing him, on every mirror, was Haku. Shit. I can't get her with my bugs while she's in there. And that last jutsu was most of my chakra. Kiba, get here soon. With Hinata, he's getting weaker. Shino, hold on. I can't abandon my post. But I'm sure Naruto or Kiba will help soon. With Naruto, Zabuza was simply laughing. They had been in a fierce kenjutsu fight for several minutes now. Due to the heat caused by Naruto's staff, any mist Zabuza attempted to produce was quickly wiped away. The staff did not seem to be wearing down, meaning the kid either had massive chakra stores or amazing control, not that he knew Naruto had both. However, even with the staff, Naruto was slowly getting more and more cuts. Though some were already healing, it was clearly a losing battle. However, this was not why Zabuza was laughing. Looking down the bridge a few hundred feet, he saw Haku create the mirrors. What's so funny? Naruto growled at the man who was still laughing his ass off. Your friends are about to die. Haku used the mirrors, they stand no chance. Do not underestimate them. Your tool seems to be having a hard time too. You mean Haku? Haku was just playing with him. With her ice bloodline, she is Jounin level. Heck, on a good day she may even beat me. Naruto's eyes widened. He knew that it took great skill to use the needles like she had, but Jounin level? I have to finish this fight, quick. Let's take this up a notch, shall we? The man stopped laughing. Then grinned maliciously. If you wish for your death, I will be happy to grant it. Charging once again, Naruto only had a moment to block, before leaping backwards and starting hand seals. Raitun, lightning staff. A rod made of lightning, the same length as the flame staff, formed in Naruto's left hand. The flame staff in his right, Naruto took his stance, his left in front, wrist bent, holding the staff parallel to the ground and out in front of him, his right hand over his head, spinning the flames like a helicopter blade. Come! Zabuza, not one to turn down such a challenge, charged, swinging like a madman. The kenjutsu fight continued. With Shino, there is no logical way out of this, I am going to die here. Needles covered his body, he had more than 80 stuck in various parts of his body. Collapsing to the ground, he fell unconscious. Well now, I guess I should finish him off. Spinning a needle, Haku was about to slash Shino's throat when a blast of air came from her left. Blown to the side, she moved herself into a mirror, just in time to avoid a slash from a rather ferocious-looking boy. Shino, I will protect you, just don't hit on me later. If Shino was conscious, he'd have hit him for that. However, just because Shino wasn't conscious didn't mean his bugs weren't. There would be payback. If they survived. Hey, creepy hunter-neen lady, my name is Haku, I am not creepy, and stop eyeballing me or I will be forced to neuter your corpse. Cringing at the thought, he took a moment, then became serious. I will protect him, and you will lose here. Prepare yourself. Jujin Bunshin. Getsuga. Becoming two whirling missiles, Kiba and Akamaru, who now looked like Kiba, began striking the mirrors until it became apparent they weren't doing much. The mirrors just kept repairing themselves. Now you will die as well. Releasing 100 ice needles from the mirrors, Kiba was struck in many, many places. However, he managed to save his manhood. Akamaru looked like a pincushion and dropped the bunshin, becoming the small white dog he was. Taking 2 soldier pills out of his equipment bag, Kiba fed one to Akamaru and one to himself, and prepared for a last attempt. I will protect him. Kiba gasped. He knew this next attempt may very well kill him, but he was willing to take the chance. Mother, Hana, I'm sorry, but it must be done. This better work. It's all I have left. I shouldn't have spent so much chakra fighting those samurai, working through the hand seals, all 40 of them. Haku did not simply wait. By the time he'd finished the seals, Kiba had 20 more needles in his body. He'd managed to dodge enough while making the seals to avoid getting hit in vital spots and without losing concentration. Akamaru, now. A loud growl erupted from the small dog, sounding like a roar created from sound. This had better frickin' work. Kenjutsu, beast release. A gigantic burst of wind launched into the wave of sound, multiplying its power 1,000-fold. The sound/wind wave took the shape of a wolf, and shattered all the mirrors, blowing Haku away, skidding on the ground nearly 200 feet, landing near Naruto and Zabuza's fight. Kiba promptly passed out. With Naruto, the Kenjutsu fight had continued for several minutes, until an attack which sounded like a sonic boom, sent a woman flying towards them. Looking at the body, Zabuza bounded away and stopped it from moving. Seeing Haku, body covered in deep gashes from head to toe, with the mask on her face broken, Zabuza howled in anger. If you take away my daughter, I'll take away your girl. Forming hand seals before Naruto could react, Zabuza shouted in fury, Suiton, Water Dragon no Jutsu. A dragon made of water from beneath the bridge appeared, and shot at Hinata at such a speed she couldn't possibly dodge. Hit by the attack, she was immediately knocked unconscious. Zabuza became a blur, swinging his sword around to hit both Tazuna and Hinata, when he suddenly froze in place. An aura of pure unbridled hatred and killing intent were aimed directly at him, so powerful it seemed unnatural. You shall never, ever touch Hinatakin again. Prepare to die. Naruto looked quite different. He glowed with a red aura of chakra, surging around him destroying whatever it whipped into. His hands had grown out, and he now had claws, clearly visible now that his staffs had disappeared. However, the most terrifying aspect of Naruto was his eyes. Naruto's eyes had changed from their once beautiful cerulean blue. They were now green and with wide black slits in the middle, the kanji for seal in the center, looking as if it was burned in with fire. Naruto's mind flooded with his knowledge. Seals flashed before his eyes, before settling upon one. A gravity seal. In an instant, the seal was placed on Zabuza, as if projected onto him. It activated, and he grew heavier, and heavier still. Soon, he was crushed to the bridge, the force of the seal starting to crush his bones. Then, Naruto began forming seals. Walking slowly up to the struggling Zabuza, Naruto took one look at his hand. A seal, more complex than anything the Yondaime had created, except maybe those needed for Hiration, appeared on Naruto's hand. You will never touch her again, in this life or the next. Fujinjutsu, Disintegration Seal. Ramming his hand towards Zabuza, Naruto was awed, as his hand came in contact with Haku, who had regained consciousness, and leapt in front of Zabuza. However, in that moment, all of Naruto's chakra was dispelled into the jutsu, and Haku turned to dust. The Kyuubi chakra was gone, and Naruto's eyes returned to normal. Fortunately, the only ones still conscious to see it were one immovable Zabuza, one terrified Tazuna, and a new presence. Zabuza. I see you failed once again. Well, at least after I kill you all, I'll get the bounty for your head. Too bad the cowardly woman who was with you left, I bet she would have been entertaining. The voice was followed by the sounds of many, many feet. Gatu, Naruto muttered. The army of thugs would be difficult to deal with in his condition. You bastard. Zabuza gasped out. Naruto deactivated the seal, and Zabuza, with his bones half destroyed, stood up. What was your name? Zabuza inquired to the blonde-haired ninja. Uzumaki Naruto. You are strong, but my business is no longer with you. Please, put Haku's ashes into my grave with me, and take my sword. I cannot wield it now, but it is well made. Make sure it gets an owner. Kunai. Naruto tossed a kunai to Zabuza, who turned to Gato. I'll show you a demon. He roared. Though Naruto had killed Haku, he had done so with honor, and she fulfilled her wish to protect Zabuza with her life. She had saved him. However, Gato had just insulted for her. For that, he would die. Gato, seeing the ninja stand once again, with an evil glint in his eye, raced to the back of his army of thugs. However, this did not stop Zabuza. Racing through the ranks, Zabuza killed every single person in his way, cutting a swath of destruction to Gato. With several spears, pikes, swords, and other weapons protruding from his back, Zabuza stumbled forward, and killed Gato, throwing his corpse off the bridge. Then, seeing as he had no chakra left, and could barely move his arms anymore, Zabuza shot Naruto one last look, then collapsed, dying no more than a few seconds later. Just like a week ago, heart, lungs, liver. All of his vital points had been, but he fought to the very end. One of the thugs spoke up suddenly. Hey, he was our free pass. Let's just kill the stupid ninja and raid the town. If he's in league with the guy that killed our money clip, he may as well die. His pretty little blue-haired friend over there would make for some good entertainment. She's a ninja, bet she could go on for hours. A larger thug spoke up. However, before Naruto could become enraged, an arrow landed in front of the group. Turning around, they saw the entire village of people all holding weapons. If you even touch any of those ninja, or the village, you will have us to deal with, said a small boy. A chorus of cheers followed his statement. The thugs, looking nervous, decided perhaps attacking a force twice their size wouldn't be a smart idea. Running for the hills, they scattered, and the people cheered. A few days later, Aliera, Kiba, Hinata, Shino, and Naruto stood at the front of the bridge, now completed. Tazuna was on a podium in front of them, praising them for their skills and for their help, how they came to their aid even when they didn't have to. Tazuna paused in his speech, remembering the conversation he'd had with Naruto the night after the battle at the bridge. Flashback no jutsu, Tazuna-san, what you saw was a sealing jutsu that was meant only to destroy parts of a body. I lost control, and I swore to myself never to use that jutsu again unless absolutely necessary. You cannot tell anyone what you saw though. That seal is too powerful to be let alone, and you simply having seen it, would cause you and perhaps your family to get kidnapped for information. Put simply, tell no one what you saw. What about your eyes? I mean, that's not a common occurrence either, is it? What do you mean my eyes? What happened? They became green and slit, with the kanji for seal in the middle of the slits in red. I've never seen eyes like those before. Ah. That is not for you to know. Sighing, Tazuna knew he wouldn't get any more information from the boy on what exactly had happened. I won't tell a soul. I expect nothing less. Flashback end, returning his attention to the crowd, he resumed his speech after just a few moments. Finishing shortly afterwards, the 5 ninja crossed the bridge and began their journey back to Konoha. Wait a minute, Inari piped up. We never got to name the bridge. Thinking for a moment, Tazuna turned to Inari. Remember that brown-haired boy? I think he had more to do with this success than anyone. I say we name this the Great Kiba Bridge, in honor of the boy who inspired this town to join together and fight back, the boy with the bravery of a man, intelligence, kindness. The crowd cheered, and the next day it was engraved in stone above the bridge for all to see. After crossing the bridge, I'm tired, I'm hungry, my feet hurt, and I keep dreaming of cats. When are we getting home? Kiba whined. It was going to be a long journey home. Returning from their trip to Wave had been fortunately uneventful. It had taken 3 days to get back, since Aliera could only walk. Team 8 and Naruto decided to take her to the hospital. After all, it normally didn't take this long to restore one's chakra reserves. Checking her in, Oliera was taken up to room 309. Kiba and Shino said their goodbyes and went off to unpack and continue the day. It had only been 2 p.m. when they got back, a perfect day to relax since all missions they could do would be taken by then anyway, and they had no sensei to do them with. Naruto, on the other hand, decided to follow Oliera up to the room, walking hand in hand with Hinata. Laying her down in the bed, he leaned over in front of Oliera. "You had me worried, Nachan, Naruto-kan, I can take care of myself. However, that needle did do a number on me, I don't think I can move much anymore." Oliera said with a smile tugging at her lips. "Well, don't worry me now, and you better be up soon, else your team is gonna get bored." Nodding in agreement, Oliera laid down to rest, but after 5 minutes determined she couldn't sleep. Opening her eyes again, she sat herself up, only to see Naruto still there, watching her. "What are you still doing here? Wanted to make sure you got to sleep okay, but it looks like that isn't going to happen. The nurse was curious as to why your chakra wasn't back yet as well. She thinks there must have been some kind of poison on it, that damaged your chakra coils." They called the Hokage to see what he thought. "Ah, I see. Well, then, we may have a while to wait, he must have a lot to do." Turning to Hinata, she called her over. The three then engaged in small talk, until Naruto gained a thoughtful look on his face, as if suddenly remembering something. Oliera. Can I ask you something?" Sure. What do you need?" "Oliera, do you know who my parents were?" The lack of the honorific showed her he was now being serious, so she looked at him thoughtfully for a moment. Wondering what had brought on such a question, she responded. "No, Naruto. I don't. I think the only person in the village who could possibly know where you came from would be the Hokage. Why did you want to know?" As if on cue, the Hokage walked into the room with Hyuga Niji at his side. Naruto had been around Hinata enough to know her cousin, an arrogant kid who looked upon the world as if it was driven by some otherworldly force known as fate. He had a weird seal on his head, like most other branch members, which kept him in line with the main family. However, this was one of the very things Naruto hated most, the idea of slavery and that someone is bound to fate, as if they can't rebel. Wearing a white yukata, and with long hair, he looked very feminine. If not for how he looked when glaring, his default expression, he may have actually looked hot to the female populace. Remembering their first time meeting each other, Naruto lost himself in thought. Flashback no jutsu, 2 months ago, Hinata and Naruto could be found sitting by a lake near Training Ground 7, their hands feeling each other's, and looking out over the clear blue water. On some days, this water could be a raging whirlpool due to a jutsu, on others it could be boiling hot, freezing cold, pleasant, and even calm. The pleasant calm waters of that day left Hinata and Naruto content to just be with each other and watch. However, breaking the calm, Naruto turned to Hinata. "Hey Hinata, I don't know why this never occurred to me before. But just who is that guy who's always watching us?" Interrupted from the shadows, a man walked out. His veins around his eyes were bulging, then quickly stopped. "I am Hyuga Niji, her cousin and prodigy of the main branch. A bit arrogant, aren't you? You aren't one to be talking. I've heard some things about your missions, and your headstrong tendencies. Your dream though, that is the one thing that interests me. You have no bloodline, no particular talent, yet you are trying to be Hokage. It is futile, you realize, fate decides the Hokages." "Fate? What does fate have to do with anything? I work myself to be strong, and I choose my own fate. Fate is determined at birth. My father's fate was decided the second his twin brother left the womb first, and he died for it. You cannot escape your fate, and as an orphan you have no chance." The Yondaime was an orphan. He had no family, and neither do I, yet that does not mean I can't change my own path. If you believe so much in fate, then I will have to change that, won't I? You cannot change mine any more than you can change your own, you bastard. The main branch oppress us, yet you openly help them? They make us slaves, but you have fun with them. Tell me, what's it like to be free? His voice was now full of malice. I haven't lived a free day in my life, but this fool lives oblivious. If he understands, perhaps he will rethink this thing with Hinata, and I won't have to watch their damned asses anymore. I may not know your particular hardships, but I know your pain. You know nothing. Niji then slipped back into the darkness, all traces of him disappearing. Naruto couldn't doubt this. Niji was a prodigious ninja. End flashback. Niji scowled at the man who knew nothing of pain. Taken in by the Hokage and trained. He couldn't know pain, he had family, he had love, even without parents, the boy was special. Hinata, I am here to bring you back to the manor, your father wishes to speak with you. The Hokage quickly turned to the two of them, halting their path. Hold on. Niji, we are having trouble figuring out what happened to Aliera. Examine her. Complying, Niji activated his Byakugan. Looking at Aliera, he saw that her coils had been damaged in several places, with a foreign chakra disrupting flow in the chest. No wonder she was bedridden, any non-ninja would have died instantly. There is a foreign chakra disrupting her flow through her chest and right arm, as well as damage in those spots and in her neck. The pathways appear not to be able to reconstruct themselves around the foreign chakra, but it is dissipating. By my estimate, the foreign chakra will dissipate in about 2 weeks' time, and she should then begin healing. Niji then deactivated his Byakugan and left the room with Hinata, closing the door behind them. The Hokage addressed Aliera. You are going to be off active duty and in here the next few weeks. If all is as the Byakugan saw, then you should be fine in about a month. In the meantime, who would you like to serve as your replacement? Naruto. The blonde Chunin looked at her in surprise. Sure, he knew everyone on her team, but he wasn't a jounin. The Hokage was surprised as well, but having known Naruto, knew why she had made that decision. Listen, Aliera, I know he is a good friend to you, and he's talented, but he's no jounin. He wouldn't be leading them on anything more than dranks, or cranks within Fire Country. I thought you wanted your team to get experience. Yes, and he is plenty capable of leading a team by himself. He defeated Momochi Zabuza by himself. Surely, Aliera was cut off by the sound of Naruto clearing his throat. I'm afraid that isn't exactly true. I have something to ask you, Ajizan. A short pause followed, until Naruto continued. I don't believe I defeated Zabuza myself. I had the help of my tenant. Both Aliera and the Hokage's eyes widened. Naruto quickly went through some hand seals, then put a silencing barrier around the room. Before the either member of his audience could speak again, Naruto continued in a slightly softer, darker voice unbefitting of the boy. That battle is scattered in my mind. I remember I engaged Zabuza in a kenjutsu fight with my elemental staffs. I remember his ally, Haku, landing near us because of some jutsu Kiba must have used, then I remember Zabuza attacking Hinata. After that, I think I must have passed out, but I opened my eyes and was in a large sewer. It was glowing red at the end of it, and within a giant cage was Giant Fox. We talked, and he pushed some kind of red chakra through the bars at me, and I remember the pain enveloping my body as it surrounded me, and then I blacked out. Tazuna explained some of it to me later, but other than using my disintegration seal, I don't remember anything until I released a gravity seal I'd somehow placed on him. Aliera held a shocked look, while the Hokage merely looked speculatively at the young boy. So he knows. Then, as if deciding something, he nodded to himself, and began speaking. Tell me of your conversation with it. Flashback no jutsu, if you take away my daughter, I'll take away your girl. Forming hand seals before Naruto could react, Zabuza shouted in fury, Suiton, water dragon no jutsu. Naruto saw the dragon hit her. Then all became black. He awoke a few moments later, only to see himself lying face up in a sewer. That's weird. I wonder where I am. Is this sewage? Looking down the hallway, Naruto saw a red glow at the end. Walking towards the glow, Naruto soon found himself in front of an enormous cage. Within it were two gigantic red eyes, watching him. Where am I? You are in my realm, mortal, more specifically. Your mind, air. Okay. Who are you? You will address me as the great Lord Kyuubi, Kyuubi? The demon fox? Wait, the Yondaime killed it. Or sealed it. That scroll. Am I the child he sealed the Kyuubi in? Is that why I'm so different? Seeing the young boy piece things together in his head, which was ironic because that's where they were and because the Kyuubi could sense Naruto's thoughts, the fox decided to solve this quickly. Yes, you are my vessel, and this is your mindscape, where I reside. You entered here when your mate was struck, mate? Does he mean Hinata? Ah yes, the blue-haired girl. She is indeed a fine specimen. Blushing crimson, the boy then continued his casual conversation with the Lord of all Demons. Then, as if realizing what was going on, Naruto turned to him and yelled, "Wait a minute, I was brought here because Hinata is in trouble." Yes. And I suppose you are out of chakra? Nearly. But I have to protect her. The great Kyuubi threw red chakra through the bars in the form of chakra, stabbing Naruto in the stomach with it, imbuing him with it. You may use mine, but keep in mind I am not being generous. You have gained some of my respect, mortal, by working as you do, but once I am free of this cage I will make sure to kill you and all you care for. Naruto was jolted out of his mindscape, and felt power. Turning to Zabuza, he felt his new power, and proclaimed in a voice that sounded much like the fox's within him. You shall never, ever touch Hinatakin again. Prepare to die. End flashback. Sighing to himself, the Hokage spoke. I suppose there is no longer a reason to hide it. You are the Kyuubi's container, a Jinchuriki. I assume from that scroll you saw a few years back, and all those sealing scrolls, you've probably figured the rest out. You are the Yondaime's son, and he sealed the Kyuubi into you at birth, at the cost of his life. I'm sorry, but there was no other way to get rid of it. Naruto, though slightly angry that this had been kept from him, thought over the matter a bit more. Ajisen. It's okay. I can only imagine what life would have been like if the people knew I was a container. They may have assumed me to be the demon anyway, like a few choice clan heads seem to think. And seeing as you took me in as your own, should really be thanking you. Anywhere else, I would have been shunned. Plus, I've suspected it for a while now. As someone studying seals, it's kinda hard not to notice the one that appears on my chest every time I mold chakra. Naruto finished in a happy tone of voice, no anger present at all. The Hokage let a lone tear slide down his face, but then quickly wiped it away. Naruto. Thank you. I should warn you though, don't ever use that chakra if you can avoid it. Every time you do, you will weaken the seal just a little more. Since we don't know what would happen if you died, you should only use it as a very last resort. The seal weakening is preferable over the possibility of another coming of the Kyuubi. Naruto became thoughtful for a moment, then realized something else. If my father was the Yondaime, who was my mother? And where's our house? I mean, if my dad was Hokage, he must have had a house, and a training ground, and a library. And techniques. A bit of drool slipped out of the edge of his mouth, as he thought of the possibilities. Then, noticing the drool, he quickly wiped it off, looking embarrassed. I'll tell you when you become a jounin, per his request. You may know who he was, but he believed you should work to earn your heritage. After all, what kind of shinobi just copies the style of those before them? Each member of a family contributes to the jutsus, each striving to surpass those before them. Finishing with a grin, he looked at the boy who was now looking at the ground uneasily. The sandaime then realized he'd missed something in his talk with the boy. Naruto. Did you say disintegration seal? I believe I labeled that seal as forbidden. And do you remember why it was forbidden? Naruto looked meekly up at the still intimidating old man. Because it's dangerous? The old man shook his head, then glared at the boy, causing him to shrink under his steely gaze. Naruto, the last time you did that you were in the hospital for the most dire case of chakra exhaustion I've ever seen. If it wasn't for the Kyuubi, who I suspect is responsible for your massive chakra supply and fast healing, then you would have died. Aliera's face was still in shock, as the two talked to each other seemingly oblivious of her presence in the room. Shaking her head side to side, she cleared her throat and attempted to get their attention. Ahem. I believe there is a very confused sick person in the room. Oh right, me. Stop ignoring me or you'll get my foot up your ass. Naruto and Sandaime both looked sheepish, rubbing the back of their heads. Then Sandaime gained a serious look. Aliera, I entrust you with the information you just heard, and you are not to tell anyone about it. It is an class secret, and for betraying the secret, the punishment is execution. I assume you will not break this rule. The kunoichi shrunk back from the killing intent the man had been releasing, and nodded her head. Then, turning to Naruto, Aliera spoke, Naruto. What was wrong with your eyes on the way back? Naruto cursed inwardly. I wanted to keep this a secret, damn it. Nothing was wrong with them, Nei-chan. What are you talking about? However, Naruto's attempt to hide what was going through his head. Naruto, you have 5 seconds before I make you go on drinks for the next month, the sandaime said sternly. Cowering back from the idea of pulling weeds and walking dogs like he'd seen so many teams do, Naruto began very, very quickly. Hiruzen, did my mother or father have bloodline limits? Seeing the sandaime shake his head no, Naruto began trying to explain his odd ability. Okay, well. I think I have a dijitsu. I figured out that I can activate it by sending chakra to my eyes. So far as I can tell, it lets me project seals onto objects. I think that's how the gravity seal got onto Zabuza, you know, since I had no ink. Naruto, perhaps it would be better if you just let me see it. Concentrating for a moment, Naruto sent chakra to his eyes, and after a few seconds, he opened them to reveal green eyes, with wide black slits through them and the kanji for seal in red in the middle. Interesting. And surprising. I have never seen nor heard of a dijitsu like that. It will have to be documented of course, but what did you mean by projecting? A seal appeared on Naruto's hand as he stared at it, a modified exploding seal. See? The seal just appears when I imagine it on my hand. And I can change it. It's like my mind is just projecting the image onto whatever I want it to. However, when Naruto turned to the Hokage, he noticed something was amiss. The Hokage was both staring at him in the eyes, yet not looking at him at all. Oi! Hiruzen? What's wrong? Naruto. Your eyes change with the seals. Right now, the normal red 4 seal is showing the writing for an exploding note. It's amazing. You're practically burning images into objects with your mind alone. Naruto simply looked confused, until going over to a mirror and watching his eyes change from seal to seal as he cycled through all the ones he knew. After cycling through more than 50 different seals, Naruto noticed that every time he switched the seals, there would be a small dip in his chakra, as if the change was draining him. Also, it seemed that he could only project it onto things that were nearby. The more chakra he forced out of his eyes, the longer the range. After another hour of experimenting with it in the room, they discovered exactly what the range was normally, what seals could be projected, and Naruto, after playing with some modified exploding seals, found a way to sustain a seal with his chakra, so that Naruto could make his opponents explode one after another, like a touch-activated Katan Jutsu. However, Naruto was soon drained. Even with his massive reserves, sustaining a seal for a long amount of time that basically needs to be replaced over and over is not easy. The Hokage performed a quick jutsu which repaired most of the damage to the walls by moving bits around and thinning the material to become evenly spread. Naruto. With that ability trained and your knowledge of seals, you would be equal to most jounin in the village. Maybe in a few years you'd be even with me. I'll send you to the next jounin exams, 2 months after the Chunin exams, but in the meantime, you will serve as teammate sensei. With that ability I have no doubt you can lead them on missions. Also, don't tell anyone what we spoke of here today. Unless you want to, but make sure they don't tell anyone else. The Hokage then turned to Elira and began speaking again. Do you intend to send them to the Chunin exams? Yes, Hokage-sama. The Naruto will have to serve as their sensei, as the exams will be starting in 2 weeks and you will be in no shape to serve as their sensei then. Naruto? Yes? Give Team 8 these. Handing Naruto some forms that he had brought with him, but had been left forgotten on the table until now, Naruto saw that they were entrance exams. Team 7, 9, and 10 will also be participating. Train your students for the next few weeks. They may be an apt team, but help wouldn't do them any harm. Naruto nodded. Falling back into his teaching role, Naruto stood straight up, then bowed to the Hokage and Aliera, and left the room, removing the silencing barrier. Think my little brother there will make a good Hokage? The Hokage, for once, looked incredulous. Are you kidding me? With his reserves, once he hits Jounin, imagine what will happen. If he combines that bloodline with Hiruzen, then that dream of surpassing the Yondaime won't be so far-fetched after all. Hey! If he's the Yondaime legacy, shouldn't you tell the clans? I mean, I'm not blind, I've noticed more than a few clans that don't like him because of Kyuubi. If you inform them of whose son he is, it would help, right? Aliera. For once I agree with you. Now get some rest, I can't have my best jounin out of commission for too long. Wait. Hokage-sama. Chapter 18 Ika Ika Paradise, Volume 4. That's me at age 17. The Hokage promptly fainted from a nosebleed. He would be found in her room later that night, still unconscious with a blush on his cheeks. The next day, the nurse that found him had 10,000 ryu. Elsewhere, Hinata sat before her father, wondering what could have possibly caused him to actually pay attention to her. I mean, she knew she wasn't very strong with her Byakugan, and that her Juken was different, as though she had bastardized some of the techniques, but she was a pretty good fighter. She had just done a crank successfully, even if she hadn't done much, but she couldn't complain, it was decent pay. The icy silence continued, tension thick in the air, then Hayashi spoke. Hinata. You are weak. You are a disgrace to the main branch of this family. However, you have a chance to redeem this. If you are promoted to Chunin at this exam, you will surpass the prodigy of the branch family. You cousin, Niji. You must beat him, or you will no longer be my daughter. Hinata was shocked. Her father had never threatened her with being disowned before. Niji was a prodigy, how could she hope to beat him? If she was disowned, she would be given the caged bird seal, she would be another slave, and Naruto. She would lose the freedom to do as she wished. And lose the freedom to see Naruto outside of missions. Hayashi motioned for her to leave the room, which she did. She entered her room and burst into tears. A while later, she heard a knock on her door, and opened it to see an older branch member looking down at her with sympathy, having seen that something was wrong. However, the branch member also had a job to do. She told Hinata to go to the door, and she complied. Standing before her was her savior, Naruto. She threw herself into his arms, and finding comfort leaning into his warmth. He guided her back to her room, where he saw a pillow soaked with tears, and simply sit her down to talk. Hinata-kun. What's wrong? Too that I'm going to be disowned. Naruto blinked several times in surprise, then looked into her eyes. He lifted her chin, wiped away her tears with a tissue, and kissed her. This left her in shock briefly, before she forgot what she was talking about, and simply enjoyed it. She surprised him when she broke away, got up, and locked the door. Then, sitting down, she pushed Naruto on top of the lying down face-up. Moving towards him, she climbed on top of him, and locked lips with his. Naruto was incredibly surprised. He had planned for the girl to merely calm down, not throw him onto the bed. Sensing that things were getting out of hand, he tried to pull himself away, but couldn't. It felt too good, her legs pressed against his, her breasts resting gently on top of him, and her eyes, which now were just looking at him, with a hint of confusion but mostly just a twinkling beacon. The mischievous grin she wore made her seem like a naughty angel from Hinata. Staring into those cerulean blue eyes, began caressing his whisker marks. He began making purring noises, as though he was a very, very happy cat, and soon she felt a hard lump pressing into her thigh. Looking down, still caressing him while he closed his eyes, she saw his third leg emerge in a tent against her. Seeing this going somewhere, she reached down and pulled off his jacket. He had changed since being at the hospital, having worn a black windbreaker with only his chunin vest underneath. He'd planned to get some training done with the team, and thus required no shirt. He was also wearing black ninja pants that were a little loose, but had a white length of rope tied around them to serve as a belt. Having removed the offending jacket, Hinata removed his vest, and rested against his chest, her hair tickling it as she got herself comfortable. Hinata. Can you tell me what happened? The tears threatened to break through again, but she feared not being able to talk coherently, so she pushed them back. She explained to him what had happened, and saw not what she expected. Instead of looking defeated, he put on a determined look. Hinata-kun, if that's the case, then that just means you'll have to train harder. I promise, by the time I'm done with you, you'll be able to beat him. But don't you have missions? Actually no, that's what I came here to talk to you about. For the moment, though I'm not actually a jounin, though the Hokage seems to think I'd make a good one, I am to serve as teammate's temporary jounin sensei. Now, Hinata knew Naruto was strong. He had beaten Zabuza after all, but that was still a blow to the head. Naruto? Jounin level? That hardly made sense. But then again, he was Sarutobi's newest protege. Naruto, that's great. But won't you have to train Kiba and Shino too? Of course, but you can learn my taijutsu style. Combined with the Jukin, I'm sure you'll be able to kick Niji's butt. His determination was infectious, as was his smile. Hinata was soon grinning wide at the thought that she would get some alone time with Naruto now what he was her sensei. Giving him another kiss, she halted when she heard footsteps. Knocking sounded on the locked door. Hinata looked over at Naruto, who had already put his vest and jacket back on, and nodded. Come in. Hayashi stepped through the doorway, briefly narrowing his eyes at Naruto, then let it slide. He had indeed become a weapon of the village, just a weapon that chose to date his daughter, or the girl who wouldn't be his daughter anymore if she failed. Naruto, it is time for Hinata's practice. You may now leave. Naruto got the idea, and quickly left, discreetly leaving a note and form on Hinata's table. He set off for the Inuzuka house, to visit a good friend. Inuzuka household, Naruto looked around, once again noticing how different this clan household was from the Hyuga compound. Naruto simply walked up and knocked on the door, a second later being opened by a happy Kiba with his white dog, Akamaru, sitting atop his head. "Hey Naruto. What's up? That's Naruto sensei to you. Heh, good one. You may be higher up there in rank, but you sure aren't my sensei." Handing the Inuzuka one of 2 remaining notes, the boy read over it carefully. "To member of Team 8, Naruto is now your temporary sensei for the Chunin exams, as Aliera is unable to train you at this time due to damages to her chakra system. He is more than capable of training you, so listen to him well. If you make it to the 3rd portion of the exams, Aliera will train you in the month in between the end of the 2nd and the start of the 3rd. Please respect him, as he will you. Come to me if you have any problems." Sandame, Sarutobi at the bottom was the seal of the Hokage, showing it was officially the Hokage's message. Kiba was slack-jawed at the note. He turned to look at Naruto again, noticing the kiss marks on him, and decided even if he was his sensei now, he was still Naruto. Well, this seems legit. I must ask though, Naruto, did you happen to visit Hinata first? She appears to have eaten you. Naruto blushed crimson, then wiped off the parts that Hinata had kissed, some that didn't have marks, which made Kiba chuckle in amusement. "Shut up, you're just jealous that you can't get any girl our age to look at you, mutt." Kiba growled dangerously at that, but before he could respond, Naruto held up a hand, signaling for him to stop. "Kiba, meet me at the normal training ground tomorrow, normal time. Also here, take this. Get me a response to this by tomorrow, and fill it out." Handing Kiba the Chunin exam form, Naruto shined away. However, on the wind he could have sworn he heard Kiba cheering. "Aburame compound, hello, Shino." The boy turned to Naruto, noticing nothing out of the ordinary. "Hello Naruto." "Here," Naruto said, handing the note to Shino. The bug boy read over it very quickly, then nodded. Correction, Naruto sensei. Unlike Kiba, Shino had read the mission report and had seen that Naruto had defeated Momochi Zabuza himself, a feat that Aliera had trouble with the first time around. Admittedly, from what Shino saw, that was because she wanted him alive for questioning, but then had to give up that option when her sword got away from her. Even then, she held back some. An attack of the caliber she'd used could have killed Zabuza had she so choosed. "Yes. Here, fill this out by tomorrow if you want to participate, and I'll see you at the training field normal time tomorrow." Indeed. Naruto then handed Shino the form and shined away. The boy was as quiet as ever, and for once Naruto was happy with that. It meant that he could get home to a shower faster. Naruto sped off for home. 5 minutes later, Naruto was taking a shortcut through some training grounds when he heard the sound of steel clashing against posts. Very loudly and very rapidly, one after another. Stopping his movements. He looked down at a nearby field, and saw a girl with brown hair, bound up into buns, throwing many kunai at training posts, summoning them from storage scrolls. She was wearing a pink Chinese shirt which was rather tight, showing off her assets, a little bigger than normal for someone her age, her looking to be about 13 or 14. She was also wearing green baggy ninja pants, similar to his own black ones, except with a kunai pouch strapped to the right thigh. Looking at the damage to the posts, they appeared to be straining, the amount of kunai hitting them nearly cracking them at the bullseye mark. Deciding to have some fun experimenting, Naruto activated his bloodline and, focusing very hard on one of her kunai, put an exploding note seal on it just before it struck. Seconds later, the post exploded, sending a spray of kunai facing the wrong way straight back towards the young kunoichi. She caught every one of them, all 28 that were in the post, putting them down as she caught them in an impressive show of speed and skill. She then threw one straight at him. Naruto caught it and dropped down from the tree, tossing the kunai to himself while whistling. She simply looked at him, then noticed 3 things. He was younger than her, he had a Konoha headband, and he had a Chunin vest. "Excuse me?" She called to him rudely, walking towards him threateningly, other kunai in hand. "Why did you just attack me?" Naruto looked her way, a faint blush on his cheeks. She was indeed cute, even cuter closer up. I love Hinata, he chanted in his head. "I didn't attack you, I was just testing something out." "What, pray tell, may that be?" "Sorry, can't tell you." He smirked, feeling smug, then looked around the clearing. There were various weapons strewn about the clearing, clearly she was fixated on kenjutsu. "You wouldn't happen to be Rock Lee's other teammate, would you?" She was surprised, especially since she had never heard anything from Lee about the boy standing before her. She was further surprised when he took off his jacket to reveal he was wearing no shirt underneath, just the vest which now hung open, showing his muscles, as he took a fighter's stance. "Yes, I am his teammate, Tenten." "Why exactly are you in a fighter's stance?" Every time I meet up with Lee he always challenges me to a fight. I thought it was normal for his teammates, considering as Niji nearly did the same thing first time I met him. Though, if you don't think you're up for it, I understand." The statement hung for a moment before Tenten too got into her taijutsu stance and drew a kunai. "Oh, so we're using weapons?" "Well, I have none on me, but I can make do." Katan, flame staff no jutsu. Flying through the hand seals required, Naruto created the 6-foot-long staff and held it out in front of him at a 45-degree angle to the ground, crouching slightly and having one end of the staff low and about 3 feet in front of himself. Tenten just looked on in awe. He was wielding fire as a weapon, as a staff, without burning himself. She had never even heard of that before, having a weapon on call like that. There were no jutsus like that. Not even the Sandaime had that. "Well, we gonna get started or what?" Shaking herself from her state of awe, Tenten leapt into the air, throwing 10 kunai at him, spiraling in midair, from just her 2 hands. However, Naruto, seeing the kunai heading for him, decided to try one of his newer techniques. Futon, flame staff shield. Spinning the flame staff quickly with the use of wind chakra, Naruto both increased the intensity of the flame and created a shield. The kunai melted upon impact. Letting the technique drop, Naruto charged at Tenten. Announcing his new attack, he formed the 7 hand seals and shouted, "Katan Futon, flame orb charge." Bending the staff and increasing its size so that it formed a ring around himself, he sent it spinning with the use of wind chakra, and jumped at her, the ball of fire colliding just after she landed. Standing in a crater 10 feet in diameter, Naruto dispelled his staff, seeing it as unnecessary. Seeing him distracted, if just for a moment, Tenten flicked some kunai at him. However, Naruto merely flipped to the side, then charged again, planting his hands on the ground and spinning above her. She moved around so that she was facing his back and planted a kick in his side, only to have him disappear in a poof of smoke. She sensed danger, but it was too late. She felt a strike on her body, just above her butt. The effect was immediate, her legs would no longer move, and she just fell forward, kneeling on her now dysfunctional legs. Naruto simply walked around to the front of her, and crouched just out of arm's reach directly in front of her. I was expecting more of a challenge from Lee's teammate. He usually gives me a good workout, when I take my weights off. You wear weights? Well, that explains why you're so fast. Next time we fight, why don't we fight like I do with Lee, weights on? My weights were on. Her jaw dropped. He's that fast with weights on. Admittedly, that's not half as good as Lee, but still pretty fast. If I was at my best, I'd have done a lot better. Well, you got lucky. I'm tired, next time you won't be so lucky. Anyway, you're a crazy taijutsu user too. He merely chuckled at the comment. Upon greater inspection it would have been revealed he was holding back full-blow laughter. Heh, no. Taijutsu's my weak point. I'm a ninjutsu user, but my specialty is really Fujinjutsu. My Genjutsu and Kenjutsu aren't half bad either. Yeah, I can tell. Wait. Fujinjutsu? You study seals? Yeah. They're really interesting. Do you think you could show me some better storage scrolls? These things don't hold many each. I wanted to know if there was a better way. The chit-chat continued for a while, neither noticing the minor injuries on themselves, though Naruto's were already gone. And his had been caused by himself, due to a minor lapse in control during the flame orb charge. Finally, Naruto asked what he had been thinking for a while. So, how do you get all these weapons anyhow? My family owns a weapons store near the center of town. I'm surprised you don't know of it, though I doubt you often have to restock weapons when you have those staffs of yours. Yeah, I rarely restock. I have a question for you, would you buy a weapon if it was in good condition? Tenten looked at him with curiosity. I suppose. Why? Well, I have something I wanna sell. I sure as heck don't need it. Naruto pulled a scroll out of his vest, once again bringing Tenten's attention to his chest, causing her to blush. A skilled Kenjutsu user with summoned weapons and a great body and beautiful eyes and a holy fucking shit. Naruto had pulled out the scroll that had Zabuza's second sword, a famous sword known as Serioli for the man that had crafted it, as shown by the engraving on the blade. It was beautiful, 6 feet long, 5 feet of blade, 1 foot of handle. It had a serrated edge on one side, the teeth pointing down, and was sharpened for slicing on the other end. The point looked perfect for stabbing. The hilt, a shiny silver, looked fairly normal, and the hilt was blood red, also plain looking. However, the engraving on the blade, Serioli, was quite obvious. So, how much could I sell this to you for? I couldn't buy it off you now. Can you follow me to the shop? It's only a little after 5 and he shouldn't have closed up just yet. Sure. Here, I'll help you pick up this stuff. 15 minutes later, Naruto chuckled at the sign, marked the ninja warehouse, with a picture of a stick figure being hit by another stick figure with a knife, wearing a ninja mask, not that you could tell easily. The building was 2 stories tall, but there was only 1 floor, with a ladder near the front that allowed you to get to the top of a shelf, one of the many shelves lining the walls, covered in weapons. In the back was the checkout desk and a small area to try out weapons, including a rather beat-up training post. There were a few smaller displays with limited edition and special new releases, but Naruto and Tenten just walked past it to the counter, where her father stood. Naruto reached back into his vest, pulled out the scroll with Serioli in it, and released it, showing it to the man. How much can I get for this? Naruto asked with a smile. The man simply gaped. A legendary sword was just brought into his store by one Sarutobi Uzumaki Naruto, Chunin of Konoha, and plopped down in front of him, asking him for the seller's price. Regaining his composure, he spoke in as steady a voice as he could manage. Ah, Naruto. Good to see you again. You too, Iketana, you too. A/N, this is what I've named her dad since I can't find the real name anywhere. If someone knows it, please tell me so I can edit this. So, you just plopped a legendary sword in front of me. Sorry to tell you, no one's ever sold it before, so there is no price for the thing. Where'd you get it anyway? Off the corpse of a dead Momochi Zabuza. He asked me to find a home for it. You killed the demon of the hidden mist? Yeah, bastard attacked Hinata and I kinda overdid it. Naruto looked sheepish, Tenten looked broken. Why are all the good ones taken? Hinata, You getting some candy? No, nothing like that. Naruto was blushing again, and Tenten was still downtrodden. However, she brightened at Naruto's next statement. You didn't tell me you had a cute daughter. Iketana brought out a mischievous grin. Why are you curious, womanizer? You thinking of getting a second girlfriend? Heh, no, no. I'm good with what I got, thanks. Anyway, what can we do with this sword? Well, buying it may be an issue. I've heard rumors that this sword picks the ones to be its user. Have you tried channeling chakra into it? No. Picking up the sword, Naruto channeled some chakra into it, but it was sent back out at him in a burst, rejecting the foreign source. Landing on his ass, Naruto got up weakly and grinned at the shopkeeper. Iketana. I'd have to say it doesn't like me. I know you don't use chakra much, and it wouldn't do you much good, but how about letting Tenten try, maybe she's lucky. Tenten, surprised at the comment, looked over at him to see $1 million smile on his face as he motioned to the weapon. She picked it up, and channeled chakra into it, closing her eyes and expecting the same pain Naruto had felt. However, she was surprised when she felt it getting channeled back into her. She heard several gasps, then opened her eyes to see a very strange sight. The sword's metal had cracked, and she feared she'd broken it, until it broke away entirely to reveal a new sword. The sword was about 4 feet long, 3 feet of blade, 1 foot of hilt and handle. The handle was completely black, as was the hilt. However, protruding from the hilt was a straight ice blue. Straight up the middle of the blade was a red streak, which stopped right beneath the tip, but started from the hilt. Engraved in the hilt was one word, Ice Flame. The sword was magnificent. Naruto just looked at it with awe, then got a big grin on his face. Looks like it likes Tenten. Tell you what, I'll give it to you for free since no one else can probably use it, so you probably can't sell it. Swords aren't really my thing anyway, so no harm done. Iketana just stared at Naruto after this statement, but Tenten had a much more active response. She placed the sword down on the counter quietly, then walked up to Naruto, her face betraying nothing. She placed a hand on each of his shoulders, then put on a seductive grin, and Naruto suddenly knew that something was about to happen, something that could result badly if not prevented. However, Naruto could not move quickly enough. Tenten put an iron grip on his shoulders, and dragged him into a back room, shooting a glare at her father, telling him not to follow. Leading him into the very back of the storage room, the only place without windows, she placed him in front of her. Then, she undid her top. Naruto was too shocked to move. Her hand made their way down her shirt, slowly undoing each button until she had gotten it undone, and she shrugged it off. She then proceeded to remove her bra, her perky breasts now exposed, him not being able to take his eyes away. He's mine now, Tenten thought evilly, the seductive grin still on her face. He's a kenjutsu user, a good one. He's about my age, he's absolutely beautiful, and he just gave me a legendary weapon. Damn it, he's mine. Then, Tenten reached over and took off Naruto's coat and vest, him still frozen in place, too paralyzed to do anything to stop it. Then, as an odd surprise, she leapt at him, flinging him to the ground, where he now lay, with Tenten on top, her legs on either side of his, spread wide around her butt in the air while she pressed her bare exposed breasts to his chest. Leaning down, she licked her lips, then locked them with his. Naruto's mind was going crazy. I love Hinata. What am I doing here? Why is she half naked? Why am I half naked? Why is she, whoa. Their lips made contact, and the reaction was immediate. His third leg was pressed up against her thighs, as she began to squeeze it to make him feel the heat. Naruto's hands were soon traveling her body, until his left found its way to her tight, firm butt, and his left found its way to her right breast, gently rubbing it. She took one of her hands and undid her hair, the other lifting up his head to bring themselves deeper into the kiss, slipping her tongue into his mouth where they soon touched. Naruto's hands were caressing her body for a good 10 minutes while they held the kiss, and her hands roamed his muscled body, one always staying behind his head, grasping his soft hair and forcing him into the kiss still harder. Only after 10 minutes of Naruto screaming in his own head, why? 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 Did Naruto come to his senses? However, this was mostly caused by Tenten having reached into his pants and grabbing his now fully erect cock. The moan he emitted snapped him out of his predicament. He flipped her over onto her back, her excited that he was finally taking charge, until she was him stand up. Tenten. I just met you, and I won't lie, you are beautiful, you are amazing, and certainly any guy who has you is an amazingly lucky guy, but I'm not him. I'm in love with someone already. This was a mistake. I'm sorry, I have to go. I'll see you around. You know. As friends maybe? I just can't do this. The whole time he was talking, he was slowly pulling his clothes back on, first pulling his pants back up, the pulling on his vest, unzipped of course, then his black windbreaker. Then turning, he cleaned up his face, and walked out as dignified as he could. Tenten, on the other hand, was fighting not to cry. She had wanted him so badly, he was kind, handsome, funny, and skilled. Everything she could ever want. I'm not gonna let him get away that easily. Sarutobi Uzumaki Naruto. You will be mine. Though the though was a tad evil, she had grown feelings for the young blonde Chunin, and she was sure for a second there, she sensed regret in his leaving, he hadn't wanted to go. Tenten would have him, she would make sure of it. That evening, council room, ah good, now that you're all here, I may as well tell you what this is all about. The Hokage addressed the council room. The clan heads looked mildly interested, as did his old teammates. Danzo looked like he was off in his own little world, and the village heads were not paying all that close attention. There is a living relative of the Yondaime Hokage. The room was immediately wide awake, all looking at him expectantly. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, he is the son of the Hokage, who sealed the Kyuubi into his own son, not willing to ask anyone else for their child. Naruto was the only choice, and he has figured this out. When he becomes a Jounin, we must reinstate the clan, per one of Yondaime's last requests. The council was split about this. Most of the people who dislike Naruto for the Kyuubi were mildly surprised, having assumed some type of relation due to the fact that they look similar, but his son? That was somewhat startling. He also has a new bloodline, possibly more powerful than even the Sharingan. It does not yet have a name, but it had the ability to project seals onto objects from a distance. With his knowledge of seals, if he was somehow able to learn Hiruzen, he would be unstoppable. At this the talking and muttering of the council became a full-blown uproar. He could become a threat to us all. If the Kyuubi were somehow able to take control, he'd kill us, said a village elder. However, most of the rest of the council had a much different opinion. The Hokage waved his hand, motioning for them to be silent. They did, in fact, fall silent, and the Hokage spoke once again. I believe you are all aware of the clan rule. The last of a clan may have multiple wives in order to produce the maximum amount of children, so that the bloodline may be passed along. When Naruto becomes a Jounin, we can bring this up again. However, until then, the fact that he is a relative of Yondaime is to remain a council secret, along with the secret of Kyuubi. The knowledge of his bloodline is protected as well, and I will reveal in his file no more than what he will name it. You are not to pass this info on to anyone, as per all bloodline information. This meeting is now over. If you have a problem with this, bring it up in person at a later point in time. Needless to say, all those who had felt indifferent toward the boy now felt a certain amount of respect, both because he was powerful and because he was related to the greatest Hokage of Konoha. Those who hated Naruto for Kyuubi still hated him, but this was limited to only a few village elders with old grudges. For the most part, Naruto was accepted in Konoha, instead of the indifference of before, though it was unlikely any clan heads would show much of any difference in attitude to the boy. That night, Sarutobi compound, Naruto lay down in his bed, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't stop thinking of Tenten or Hinata. They're both so beautiful. Hinata is kind, sweet, caring, and beautiful. If she was a color, she would be a beautiful sky blue. Tenten. Fiery, hot, a tomboy, but beautiful still, and accepting. If only. If only I wasn't so confused. What am I supposed to tell Hinata tomorrow? Should I tell her? She'll probably be angry. And I don't want to lose her. Kami. What am I supposed to do? Naruto got little sleep that night. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off.